So what is stealing versus copying? I wanted to have this conversation once and for all for my fellow artists. I've spoken about this before, but I've still heard a lot of confusion. Like, what does stealing mean? What does copying mean? Because there's a lot of artists that feel they're being copied, and there's a lot of artists that don't understand if they're copying or if they're stealing, and what the difference is. So, in simple terms, stealing is when you're inspired by art from a certain artist and you take those techniques but you create new artwork with it. So, if you like the way a certain artist paints, let's say Picasso, you like the way he merged colors, you steal that technique and you create a brand new artwork, right? Now, what stealing does, it plays on the idea of essentially nothing is new because everything is inspired. So Picasso himself, for example, was inspired by hundreds of different artists that came before him, and he also stole those techniques to create what was new. For example, like African masks, Picasso didn't create the African mask, right? But he saw African masks and he stole the constructs of how the Africans designed the face, how they designed the mouths. He stole that, right? But then he created new artwork, right? I hope you're with me here. So he stole what he didn't essentially invent, but he created something new out of it, right? That is why he is remembered. That is why he is recognized, right? Is it good or bad? That's debatable. What I'm trying to say though is nothing is new in a way because everything is inspired. If you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whatever it is that you do, whether you're a painter, everything is inspired because you are human, which means that you are inspired by things that are around you, right? For the to invent a plane, the people that invented the first plane were inspired by what was already around, which was a bird, right? So the design was a bird. You feel me? You know, two arms out, the shape of the bird, right? That's what inspired the design of the first airplane. Now, um, did that person invent the bird? No. But they stole from nature to create something new. That's why they remembered, right? So that's what I'm trying to express is that stealing is almost taking from what you're inspired by, but then creating something completely new, right? So Picasso with the African masks, he created something new because he created almost a new style inspired by the African masks. He then painted it and created figures out of that in a way that hadn't been done yet. Yes, the African masks existed, but the way Picasso painted it and put it together didn't exist. So that's stealing. Copying is when you take an artwork, whatever it is that you're inspired by, and then you copy the entire composition. So the shape of how something looks, the placement, the colors, the way everything is compiled together in the image, that is copying because now you aren't creating something new. You're just looking at a reference, right? And then you copying it directly. The likeliness in terms of the position of the central figure, the colors, the shapes, everything, right? That is copying when you are no longer creating something new. I've got a few examples just to try bring this home. Me, for example, I've always been very direct that I'm heavily inspired by Basquiat. I'm heavily inspired, just like that neo-expressionism sort of movement, or being able to sort of like discuss the world in a very unapologetic way. You know, the concept of discussing emotions directly, the concept of having commentary on politics, the concept of having something to say about the world that I exist in now, right? And almost being literal about it, you know. So this artwork, for example, is a new artwork, right? But I'm saying I stole from Basquiat, you know. Now, what did I steal? Um, Now, here's an example of this, right? So this is what I'm talking about. The way Basquiat painted, the way he did layers. Now, layers is sort of like, to simplify, it's adding paint on top of paint and then revealing something in the background. So for me personally, I am very inspired by Basquiat's style, for example, in terms of how he layered figures and objects on top of one another, almost like a collage, right? But a collage in painting form. So you've got like this artwork, for example, where you've got the yellow background, but then you've got a figure drawn, and then you've got like this dark navy blue, right, over here, and then you've got these other figures in the background, and then you've got the text and writing. It's just all on top of each other. I like that. Now personally, I just like that because that's just my taste, right? It's what my mind likes. Like, my mind is very complex, it's very complicated, there's a lot of things going on, there's always a lot of ideas flying, so I like a representation of how to express that. So it's almost like when I look at Basquiat's artwork, I resonate with it because it's like, it looks fast paced, it looks like there's a lot going on, it looks like a lot of chaos, you know, it looks like he's expressing all of the madness happening in his head, and I relate with that because I feel like that. You feel me? So I've stolen techniques that I've seen from him like this, and I've brought it into my work, right? So as you can still see, I've got these figures, I've got background, then I've got like figure, then I've got more layers of paint, then I've got some text, I've got some words that mean something to the actual figure, like the background. It's just all of these layers on top of the next, on top of the other, and that is, as I say, inspired by Basquiat, you know. There's many artists that also do this. Like, I'm on Pinterest right now. Here's another example. If it loads, this is another example of I don't know if this is by Basquiat, I don't know, I don't think so, but this is another example of just like the layering technique. This is what I am saying I am stealing, what I like, you know, just the way there's something drawn in the background and then it's painted over and then something else is drawn on top. Another simple example, there's a background, then this logo is drawn or painted, then something else is painted on top. It's almost like it keeps the eye engaged because there's so much more happening behind the scenes. Here's another artist, you know, where you can see there's something drawn in the center, then there's something drawn on top, and it's literally just the collage effect, you know. Again, Basquiat himself was inspired by hundreds of artists that came before him, you know. Did Basquiat create the collage? No. The collage has always been there, you know. People have been cutting up newspapers since the beginning of time, when newspapers existed, cutting them out, cutting different words from newspapers, sticking it on top of one page, taking a image from one newspaper, putting it on top. I mean, we've all done this in school at some points if you did art, you know. So did Basquiat create the collage? No, but he was able to steal in order to create something new, is what I'm saying, you know. So me too, I've stolen from the collage style from Basquiat to create something new, right? So just going back to what I said in the beginning, if I was to draw this now, this particular artwork, Well, let me just show another artwork by Basquiat. Nope, I don't think that's Basquiat. That's probably a copy of Basquiat. Right, here's a famous Basquiat painting. Now, what I'm saying is, if I was to have a frame this size, right, and then I draw all of these things in the background, whatever it is that Basquiat had here. I don't know if it looks like drawings that were probably drawn on an A4 piece of paper and then they were pasted onto a canvas. That's what it looks like. I don't know. But it looks like a bunch of drawings that have been pasted, collage style, right? And then he's painted this figure on top, right? On the right hand side. If I was to do the exact same thing, right? Draw the drawings and make them similar to this, and then also draw a figure that looks almost identical to this, same color, same positioning, same size, everything. Now that is copying, right? So as I said, when you take an artwork that already exists and you replicate it exactly without creating something new, that is no longer stealing, that is copying, right? Another example, just outside of myself, something interesting, because as I said, like most people don't know art history. So what I've actually picked up is that most of the audience knows art to a certain level, in that they know the people that they see on social media, or they know the people who are famous, or the artists that have a lot of followers, or the artists that have made a certain buzz. And what usually happens is that when you steal a certain style from somewhere, people assume that you stole it from the artist that's popular now, but in reality the artist that's popular stole it from somewhere else, right? So here's an example of this. This artist, I'm sure you guys know him, Sloan, right? So this is a perfect example, right? Sloan, he's a super dope artist. I like what he does. He says himself, I'm not an artist, I paste like a 6-year-old. So yeah, he's definitely not bothered by what people think about his art, which is dope. But what I'm trying to say is, Sloan, for example, is very popular, and most people my age, or most people on social media who are exposed to arts and artists around the world, probably have come across Sloan, right? Now, Sloan has a style that he does, the way he draws like these teeth with these circles, these eyes, the nose. It's almost like a very cartoony sort of style. He likes to do like the very dark black figures, and then the red lips, as you can see in this piece over here. There's like, I don't know how many different artworks here, but you can see the style of like the eyes, the black figures, right? Here's another representation of that. It's like the way he draws his eyes, the lips, the mouth, the black figure. What's another one here? The black figure, the red mouth. Now, right, again, going back to when people are exposed to certain art on social media, they assume that this is the be all end all. So because they see Sloan, right? Nothing against Sloan, he has 330,000 followers, which means he's got a lot of leverage in this digital space. But people see Sloan and then they assume that he is the be all end all for the style that he's doing, right? And what I'm trying to express is that, again, nothing is new. Everything is borrowed or stolen, right? So I'm just gonna show it to you, like how Sloan's style is stolen from somewhere else. Again, I've already broken down what stealing and copying is. Stealing is not a bad thing. Let me just put it that way. Stealing is not a bad thing. It's being inspired by what you see, and then you create something new. All right? Now just try to visualize and remember the images I've shown. I'll just leave actually one of these up, right? One of these artworks. Now let me show you something. Michael Ray Charles. Michael Ray Charles. not the musician Ray Charles, but Michael Ray Charles. He's an artist from Louisiana in the United States. Born in 1967, age 57 years. Yeah, if you know art, if you've done some form of art history, especially with black artists around the world that have had an impact in the space, you've probably come across Michael Ray Charles. Now, here's some work by Michael. All right. His work focuses on black people. His work focuses on almost like the stereotypes of who we are as black people, and he sort of like creates art that focus on different subject matters that relate to black people and almost like the stereotypes, right? Now, as I said, Sloan, right? The artist you know. This is Michael, the artist you probably don't know, because another interesting is most of the really big artists, especially the ones that aren't from our generation, like the people who have made a huge impact in the art world. Very weirdly so, it's very seldom for them to actually have a presence on social media, which is beautiful. I always feel like it's so dope that they grew up in a time and they have the privilege where they don't really have to exist on social media to have an impact in the art space, you know. I feel like I'm growing up in a different generation where if you don't exist on social media, it's very hard for you to get recognized, you know. So people do want to see how many followers you have. Unfortunately, people want to see, okay, how many followers do you have? Oh, 20,000 followers. Okay, that means he's a dope artist because so many people follow him. So let me buy from him. So unfortunately, in the space that we live in, social media is a big thing. But anyway, back to the stealing, right? Back to Sloan's art and Michael's art. Now, obviously, Michael is 57 years old, was born before Sloan, right? Which means Michael did this first, you know. Whether he then borrowed this from a cartoon, you know, because this does look almost like an animation of a face, you know, but the red lips and these teeth, right? That's Michael, you know, 57 years old, born in 1967, you know. Probably 20 or 30 years older than Sloan, right? And this is what he was doing. Here's another example. The black face, the eyes, these eyes, right? You've seen it. You've seen it, these eyes, right? You've seen it in Sloan's work. These eyes, right? The red lips, the eyes, the red lips, more work, the black figures, the red lips, the eyes, the black figure, the red mouth, the teeth, these teeth, right? Let me go back to Sloan. These teeth, can you see this, my mouse? These teeth, right? Let me look for it. There we go. These teeth, these circles, right? And the eyes. These teeth, right? And the eyes. That's what I'm trying to express, is that, like, in a way, in the art space, nothing is new, and a lot of concepts and ideas are stolen, for lack of a better word. But the reason why stealing is allowed is because everything is inspired from somewhere, you know. And even Michael himself, for example, he will also tell you that he was inspired by certain things, whether it was what he saw in animation at the time, or whether it was a certain artist that painted in a certain way. He will also tell you about his inspirations and how he was able to then take from that to be able to create this, again, stealing from what you're inspired by to create something new. And that is what most artists, if not all successful artists, do. Picasso, everyone. Picasso was very upfront about it as well, about being inspired by many people. Basquiat himself as well was very upfront about being inspired by many artists that came before him and trying to put it all together in his own new way, So just really want to put some of you artists at ease, and just to realize that being inspired by something and then using certain techniques isn't a bad thing. What is a bad thing is copying somebody's artwork directly and replicating it. I just want to show you another one of my artist that I'm inspired by, George Condo. This is another artist that I'm heavily inspired by. I really like his works. I really like the way he expresses figures. Huge artist. But also I like the way Condo was able to sort of like influence the pop and music space, in terms of like doing album covers for Kanye West. He's done a lot of the posters for Travis Scott's live shows. So I really like how he's been able to sort of work with musicians and sort of engage in the streets lifestyle per se as an artist. That's what I really liked from him. But also I really liked just his figuration of human figures. The first time I came across him, for me it was just a new way of like expressing the human body, which I found so interesting, but also so brave of him to be able to just express things that wouldn't make sense in the physical realm, but when you see it on an artwork, it makes sense, almost in a spiritual sense, the idea of a human. So George Condo, I really liked just the way, just to go through some of his works, I really like his construct of the face, and another interesting thing, okay, George Condo, he's another legend. How old is George Condo? George Condo is, how old is he? Born in 1957. He's 66 years old, so he's been doing this thing for a long time, right? Now, as I'm saying, I really like the way George like sort of like deconstructed the face and also constructed it in a way to almost create something that doesn't exist in reality, like these figures with these multiple mouths. But also I really like the way he always focused on like the eyes, the nose, and the teeth. I really liked that about George. Just want to show you more works. To show you what else I like about George. I really like his drawings. That's another big thing that I really like about Condo. There we go. Right. So this, for me, because I've seen it live, as in I've seen a video of when he draws these figures, it was super inspiring for me to see the level of freedom to draw, Just the way he sort of like starts with the background, and then he literally with oil pens, oil pens and pastels, with one black sort of color, he draws like this entire drawing freehand from his head. Like I thought that was crazy. Like, yo, the way he's able to like draw these figures, and then draw these teeth. I really like the teeth, the eyes, this sort of thing. Yeah, the way he sort of represents the human face, the line work, the shapes, the mouth, the eyes. That's something that I was really inspired in, when it comes to George Condo, So again, there's elements of George Condo that, if you know who he is, you'll pick up in some of my work. There we go, more examples of this. Just the way he draws. I like his freedom and flexibility to draw. The idea of creating something that comes from your mind, and almost not trying to sort of like gatekeep the idea, but just let it flow. Here's another example. Like, it's madness. This, I'm super inspired by this. Just the level of drawing capabilities that he has to just do this freehand, straight from his mind. So yeah, that's just another example of an artist that I'm inspired by. Again, if you look closely, you'll see many artists that you probably know and like today, that have stolen, right, his style to create something new. You know what I mean? Just the way he composes the image, the way he puts things together, the way he draws his figures in terms of the eyes, the noses, the teeth, the way he adds figures, like in this artwork here. There's many artists that steal that style, but then they create something new. So that's why they're still successful, even though they're doing what they've seen before and what they're inspired by. But at the end of the day, they're creating something new, from what they've seen. So that's really what I wanted to just say to you guys, is that when it comes to like finding your style, when it comes to creating art that you like, the simplest formula I can give you is to find artists that you're inspired by, find art that you like, and then find a way to steal those techniques to create something new. You know what I mean? Don't take this artwork here and then copy everything in terms of how this figure is standing with this figure, and the shape, and how the figures behind them look, and the composition. Don't copy that. Steal the technique, of how the figures are drawn, but then create something new, compile it all together, from what you get from different artists, from Picasso, from Basquiat, from George Condo. Here's a piece that I'm sure George Condo was inspired by Basquiat for doing this sort of like montage, collage sort of effect. So this is what I'm trying to say, that everything is inspired from somewhere, but create something new. This is sort of like the Basquiat style of like adding different images together on top of each other, and painting over certain drawings and leaving things in the background. This is definitely a Basquiat sort of style. But George Condo has created something new. So yeah, as I was saying, like, to figure out your style, just start by compiling all of the arts that you're inspired by, and then just start creating work that has influences of the techniques that you like, but then create something new, draw a different figure, tell a story of what it is that you're trying to express, um, what it is that you're trying to express, you know, the subject matter, this artwork that I did, for example, questioning reality, as I said, it's inspired by the techniques are from artists that I'm inspired by, but the message is new. The message is different. The message is unique to me. The way I've compiled the image in terms of the composition is unique to me. Um, this lady that's almost two. It's almost two frames. In one. You know, um, it shows two different emotions. One, she's really in thought here. She's really thinking. She's not happy, she's not sad, but you can see she's really in deep thoughts about something. And then the second frame down below, she's smoking, but she's almost like, I don't care. Like, whatever, it is what it is. So it's like it's one person, but it's two different emotions at the same time. So again, inspired by the collage effect of adding different concepts and ideas in the background and on top of each other, all to express one narrative, but one complex narrative, that is a representation of my mind, of the many things that I think about and all of the concepts and thoughts and questions I have. I put it into one piece of work. That's why all of the words, all of the phrases that I add is stuff that I'm thinking about as I'm making the art. You know what I mean? Am I enough? Is this what you like? Do you see the world? Like, these are just all things that I am going through and thinking about as I'm making this piece of work. So yeah, as I said, guys, still don't copy, but also know the difference. Do your research, do your just do your art history work. Just investigate the space. And funny enough, once you start to see, quote unquote, the OGs, you'll be able to see a lot of similarities in the artists that are popular now. You'll be able to see that, oh, so and so is inspired by this brew, so this brew's the source. So as I'm saying, when you steal, another piece of advice, always go to the source. So me, for example, again, just personally, I love Sloan, right? But I won't steal from Sloan. I will steal from Ray. You get me? I'll steal from Michael, because for me, he's the source. This is he's like the first one who created this whole vibe. So when you stealing from the source, it means that you're just gonna have a more dynamic understanding of how to do works like this. Especially the story behind. Like, if you dive into Michael Ray's, like, just the expression of all the art he does, like, it's very deep, but I love it. Just read the descriptions, go through what he's about, where he's from, like why he makes the art he does, what these figures mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're stealing from the source, you're just getting a more in-depth understanding of the technique that you're trying to bring. So if you really like this technique, investigate the originator, or the OG, the source of it. Read up on them, find out what it is that inspired them to do this, why they draw the way they draw the way they draw. So when you start also getting influence and in sort of like implicating some of these ideas into your work, then you have a better understanding, as opposed to, as I'm saying, nothing against Sloan, but if I just steal from Sloan with no understanding, then there isn't much depth into what I'm doing, you know. But if I steal from Michael, the originator, then there's way more depth there, you know. If I'm stealing from Basquiat, there's way more depth as opposed to stealing from some popular artist that's alive now who's doing the Basquiat style, you know. I'd rather just steal directly from the source, you feel me? If I'm gonna steal from Kondo, I'd rather, instead of going to an artist that makes art like George Kondo, I'd rather just go directly to the source, which is George Kondo, and steal from him. You feel me? Because that's the source. Same way as well, like stealing from me right now, probably pointless, you know. Rather steal from Basquiat because that's who I'm inspired by, you know. Maybe, let's say 10 years, 20 years from now, when I'm also in my 50s and I have a huge body of work of maybe like 10,000 artworks, you know, at that point, then the next generation can steal from me. You feel me? That's just how the cycle goes. But as I'm saying, nothing's new. So steal, but don't copy.